I stood there in the parking lot, holding a cardboard box full of my stuff. A framed photo of my daughter, my favorite wrench, and the clipboard I refused to stop using, even when they told me to stop documenting things. My name is Brandon Miller. I'm 41 years old, and until 48 hours ago, I was the senior site safety supervisor at MyTech Industries, a manufacturing plant just outside Dayton, Ohio. I've worked this job for almost 12 years. Never missed a shift. Never called in sick. I even skipped my honeymoon to respond to a late-night power failure on the line. That's the kind of worker I was, or maybe, the kind of fool they took advantage of. Because last Tuesday, they fired me. No severance. No warning. Just a closed-door meeting with HR, 2 cold stares from upper management, and a security escort to the door. Their reason? Non-compliance with internal directives. My crime? Reporting a major safety violation. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Because what they didn't know is that I'd already filed a report. And not just internally. I had contacted OSHA, and they weren't just reviewing it. They were coming. And they weren't coming alone. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to blow the whistle. I'm not a rebel. I'm not out for revenge. I just wanted people to be safe, to go home to their families with all 10 fingers still attached. But what do you do when the very people who are supposed to enforce safety start ignoring it? What do you do when they tell you to delete incident reports, to stop documenting everything, to look the other way? I didn't look the other way. I saw a 23-year-old technician nearly get crushed last month because someone signed off on a broken hydraulic press. I spoke up. I filed the report. And that's when things started to change. Suddenly I wasn't part of the team anymore. I wasn't being invited to meetings. My emails went unanswered. I started getting written up for things I didn't do. And then they fired me. Just like that. But here's what they didn't realize. When I was cleaning out my desk that day, I wasn't just packing up my things. I was preparing for something they never saw coming. Because OSHA was scheduled to arrive the very next morning. And what they were going to find in that factory was going to blow the roof off everything. They thought they buried me. But I was a seed. And the storm they tried to silence? I invited it. I wasn't always the guy who challenged authority. In fact, for most of my life, I believed in the chain of command. Respect the rules. Keep your head down. Do the right thing, and the right people will notice. That's what my dad taught me. He was a foreman at a steel mill for 37 years. He once lost half a finger and still finished his shift. That's the kind of grit I grew up around. Hard work wasn't optional, it was expected. So when I landed the job at MyTech Industries, it felt like I'd finally arrived. A solid company, good benefits, and a chance to rise up the ranks if I kept my nose clean. I started on the line, just another guy in a helmet and goggles. But within 2 years, I was promoted to junior safety officer, then to lead safety supervisor. By year 6, I was the guy people came to when things went wrong. Fires, falls, malfunctions. I handled them all, calmly, by the book. I took pride in the little things. Making sure every exit was clear. Posting updates to the safety board every Monday. Double-checking the pressure gauges even when nobody asked. Some people laughed at me, called me Clipboard Miller. But when things went south, I was the one they trusted. And outside of work, life was stable. I had a modest house, a 10-year-old pickup, and a daughter named Ellie who I absolutely lived for. She's 11 now, smart as a whip, and loves building Lego cities that take over the entire dining table. Her mom and I divorced a few years back. No drama, just grew apart. But we share custody, and Ellie never saw us fight. I swore I'd give her something solid to count on. And for a long time, that solid thing was my job. It paid the bills. It gave me purpose. It gave me pride. Until it didn't. Looking back now, the first signs were small. A busted emergency shutoff that wasn't repaired for days. A contractor allowed onto the floor without proper clearance. At first, I thought it was just temporary oversight. I documented the issues, filed the reports, and followed up. But those reports started getting lost. My weekly emails to upper management? Unanswered. Equipment that failed inspection? Quietly put back into operation the next day. And then came the bonuses. That's when it clicked. Management had introduced a zero-incident incentive, a massive bonus tied to our department's ability to reduce reported safety issues. Not actual safety, just the number of reports. Suddenly, nobody wanted to report anything. One guy slipped on a spilled solvent and tore his ACL. He begged me not to log it. Said his supervisor told him he'd be blacklisted from promotions if he did. That's when I knew something was deeply broken. I went to my manager, Paul Heston, the same guy who'd written my last 2 recommendation letters, and laid it out plainly. Paul, this isn't right. People are getting hurt, and the reports are being buried. He leaned back in his chair, looked me dead in the eye, and said, Brendan, if you want to stay part of this company, you need to start being part of the solution, not the problem. I walked out of his office with a lump in my throat. I wasn't being paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. They were asking me to be quiet, to ignore everything I was hired to protect. I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a rough quarter. Maybe upper management didn't understand the risks on the floor. But the incidents kept piling up. A near electrocution in Bay 3. A fire suppression system that failed to deploy. And the worst, a conveyor malfunction that almost crushed a temp worker's hand. I logged it all. Every detail. Every timestamp. Photos. Witness statements. I had everything. And with every new report came a new warning. First it was verbal, then written, then HR. Check-ins! But I didn't stop. Because I remembered something my dad told me when I was 16 and wanted to quit my first job bagging groceries. Son, there's 2 kinds of men in this world. Those who protect others and those who protect their paycheck. You decide who you want to be. I made my decision. And that's when I started gathering real evidence. Quietly. Carefully. Every inspection, every ignored maintenance request, every email they told me to delete, I saved it all. Backed up twice. Because deep down I knew, if I ever wanted to fix this place, I'd have to break the silence. I knew I was walking a thin line. Every time I filed a report, I could feel the tension around me tighten, like walking into a room where everyone's been talking about you 2 seconds before you arrived. People stopped saying good morning. Emails I used to get included in suddenly left me off the thread. And Paul Heston, the same manager who used to slap me on the back and call me rock solid, now only addressed me with 2 words. Not now. It didn't take long before I realized they weren't just burying my reports. They were building a case against me. One morning, I found a written warning on my desk. Failure to log maintenance requests in a timely manner. It was absurd. I had timestamps showing everything was entered and submitted within the hour. I confronted HR. They said it was standard procedure, and refused to remove it. That was the moment I stopped trying to fix it from the inside. From that point on, I went silent, at least on the outside. But inside, I started watching everything. The cameras, the access logs, the workflow timestamps. Every corner of that plant was leaving behind digital footprints, and I started collecting them. I noticed patterns. Every time a serious safety report went up the ladder, it disappeared within 48 hours, but only after a specific person accessed it. His name was Rick Thornton, Regional Safety Director, based out of headquarters. The guy nobody ever saw in person, but who had access to everything. And when Rick looked at your file, things started happening. Fast. I found out that 3 other safety officers from different branches had quietly resigned in the last 6 months. No public announcements. No goodbyes. Just gone. I reached out to one of them, anonymously, from a throwaway email. All she said was, "Be careful. They know how to make things look like your fault." I couldn't afford a single misstep, so I smiled in meetings, laughed at Paul's bad jokes, pretended to struggle with misplacing safety files, while backing up every one of them to a cloud account only I had access to. Then one day, I got a call from Ellie's school. She'd been sick, throwing up. They needed me to come get her. I told Paul the first had to leave. He gave me this look, half fake concern, half suspicion. "You're not using personal issues to avoid duties, are you?" That one line made my blood boil. But I didn't respond. I just nodded and walked out. That night, I went home, put Ellie to bed, and opened my laptop. I created a file. Named it OSHA_DOC_evidence_master. And I started organizing everything. Over the next few weeks, the pressure at work ramped up. I was assigned extra inspections, without support, asked to review floor plans for departments I had no authority over, giving conflicting orders, and blamed when the outcomes were delayed. They were trying to overload me, set me up to fail. And honestly, it almost worked. I was exhausted, barely sleeping, constant headaches. I started wondering if maybe I should just quit, walk away, get a new job, let it all go. But then, on a rainy Wednesday morning, I saw something that stopped me cold. A forklift had clipped a loading dock gate, broke it clean off. The operator, a temp named Jonah, came to me immediately, panicked, said no one had ever trained him on how to load on wet surfaces. Said his supervisor told him to just make it happen. It wasn't his fault. It was preventable. It was serious. I filed the report, documented everything, took photos, sent the email. 12 hours later, the report was gone. Deleted. Not closed. Not resolved. Deleted. That night, I sat in my truck in the company parking lot, just staring at the rain hitting the windshield. I realized something. This company didn't just want me gone. They wanted me discredited. Because if I ever went public, they needed the world to believe I was unreliable, bitter, disgruntled. That's when I made the final decision. I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to warn them. I wasn't even going to argue anymore. I was going to burn the whole rotten system to the ground. But do it by the book. Step by step. Silently. I turned off the engine, picked up my phone, and opened my notes app. Typed one line. Contact OSHA. Confidential. Immediate. Then I hit save and smiled for the first time in weeks. They say everyone has a breaking point. Mine came at 7:42 a.m. on a Monday. I walked into the plant, still groggy from a late night compiling evidence, and headed toward my locker. On the outside, nothing looked off. Just another day, same faded floors, same buzzing fluorescent lights. But when I opened my locker, my stomach dropped. Everything was gone. My PPE, my personal logbook, even the framed photo of Ellie I'd taped inside. In its place, a note, folded, printed on company letterhead. I opened it. Effective immediately, you are placed on indefinite administrative leave pending internal review. No meeting, no warning, no conversation, just erased. I stormed into HR. Linda, the same woman who once gave me a sympathy card after my father died, wouldn't even look me in the eyes. Paul signed off on it, she said, shifting papers. There are concerns about your recent performance. What performance? I snapped. My reports? The ones you keep deleting? She flinched. And that's when I knew she wasn't confused. She was complicit. I walked out of that office with my hands shaking. Fury wasn't the word. It was deeper than that. Like betrayal carved into bone. They had made their move. They thought they won. But what they didn't know was that I had already sent the file. The night before, I'd finished compiling every deleted report, every falsified record, every manipulated inspection photo. And I didn't just send it to OSHA. I sent it to 3 agencies. The State Labor Board, the Department of Industrial Relations, and a journalist I found who'd once written a feature titled, Factories of Denial. I also CC'd it to myself, to a separate cloud account, and to a burner email just in case. You don't prepare for war hoping to survive. You prepare so if they take you down, the truth still survives. I walked out of that building slowly, calmly, while inside, my heart was pounding like a war drum. I sat in my truck, opened my email, and saw a reply. Subject, received. Urgent follow-up requested. OSHA had responded. They were opening a formal investigation, and they wanted to meet, in person, within 48 hours. As I looked back at the plant through the rearview mirror, something inside me clicked. They had no idea what was coming. They thought firing me was the end. But really, it was just the beginning. I didn't tell a soul. Not Ellie. Not my closest friend at work, Darren. Not even my brother, who always said I needed to stop trusting corporations. This was my mission now. Quiet. Cold. Precise. I had 48 hours until the OSHA investigator arrived in my town, and I planned to make every second count. I rented a small room at a roadside motel about 10 miles from the plant. Cheap. Quiet. Off the radar. I brought only 3 things with me. My laptop, a folder of printed documents, and a small flash drive with one single word scratched onto it, truth. Every time I reported a safety hazard, I saved a screenshot. When they changed my login access, I screen recorded it. When they started deleting reports, I used third-party recovery tools and backed them up to cloud drives under fake names. Paul once joked, "You're like a squirrel with a badge, storing everything." I smiled. If only he knew. I sorted everything into categories. Deleted reports, before and after photo manipulations, emails where they told us to lie to inspectors, time-stamped logs of machine malfunctions they ignored. I even had a video of the hydraulic press failing during a late-night shift, nearly crushing a 19-year-old temp's hand. They buried that one. But I had the original file. I kept thinking about the new hires. Kids. Desperate for work. No clue they were walking into a trap. One of them, Maria, had asked me on her first day. "Is it true someone died on line 3 last year?" I told her no. I lied. Because the truth? They covered it up. Called it a malfunction-related delay in the report. But I'd seen the CCTV footage. I still had the frame. The one they deleted from the servers. I didn't just want revenge anymore. I wanted justice. When the OSHA field officer, Kenneth Dillard, called me, his voice was firm. "Mr. Nolan, I've reviewed the materials. This is extensive." "I know. I'll be flying in tomorrow. Quietly. We'll conduct the first walkthrough before sunrise. Before shift starts? That's the idea. I want them surprised." I smiled. They will be. That night, I printed duplicates of everything. I loaded the flash drive. I wrote a list of every machine that had been modified, tampered with, or intentionally left unrepaired. And then I added names. Paul. Linda. Raj, the floor supervisor who used to brag about hiding broken sensors before inspections. I didn't want anyone slipping away. No scapegoats. No denials. This was a precision strike. I thought about one thing that kept nagging me. How quiet they'd been since firing me. No call. No email. No follow-up. Nothing. Almost like they were waiting. Watching. What if they'd intercepted something? What if they knew what was coming? For a second, I felt a knot in my stomach. Then I looked at the flash drive in my hand. And I remembered, even if they did know, they had no idea how much I had on them. I barely slept. I kept picturing the look on Paul's face. The way Linda would squirm in her chair. The silence when OSHA asked about the reports that never existed. When the sun cracked over the motel window, I was already dressed. Khakis. Button-up shirt. Same boots I wore the day I was fired. I looked like I was heading to church. But I wasn't. I was heading to the reckoning. As I pulled into the lot just before sunrise, the plant looked the same. But today, it wouldn't end the same. Today, they would hear every voice they tried to silence. And the silence they left behind would finally scream back. The sky was still gray when I pulled up. A cold wind cut through the parking lot. The lights in the plant were already flickering on. Workers would start arriving in 30 minutes. But today, they wouldn't be the first ones inside. Kenneth Dillard, the OSHA officer, stepped out of his rental car. He looked like a guy who'd seen everything. Silver hair, clipboard, calm eyes. "Morning, Mr. Nolan." "Morning. You ready?" I nodded and handed him the flash drive. "Everything's on here. If they try to lie, this speaks louder." He slid it into his coat pocket. "Let's make it a morning they never forget." We walked in through the rear door. Kenneth's badge got us immediate entry. The security guard, a sleepy guy named Joel, didn't even question it. He probably assumed we were IT. The plant smelled the same. Burnt oil, warm steel, stale air. But today, the silence felt different. Like it knew something was coming. First stop, line 3. Kenneth walked straight to the hydraulic press. He examined the emergency shutoff. It didn't pass inspection. "Trip switch override's been tampered with," he muttered. I didn't say a word, just pointed to the CCTV camera above. "That footage still exists?" he asked. "It should, but they deleted it. I have the original on that drive." He just nodded. No emotion. Like a man clocking up evidence for a judge. We moved to the cooling system, the one that failed 3 times last summer, causing a worker to faint. "Maintenance logs say this was serviced last week," Kenneth said, flipping through a printed report someone had left out. It wasn't, I replied. I figured. He bent down, ran a hand along the rusted valve. This line hasn't been touched in at least 4 months. Time jump, workers and management start arriving, tension builds. At 7:15 a.m., the front doors opened. Paul walked in, coffee in one hand, Bluetooth in his ear. He stopped mid-step when he saw me standing by the safety office. He froze. Then, slowly, recognition turned to panic. "Mr. Dillard?" he said, clearing his throat, trying to fake calm. "I wasn't aware OSHA was." "You aren't meant to be," Kenneth replied. "Surprise inspections work best when no one's staging a show." Linda came down the hall next, heels clicking fast. She saw me and actually gasped. You're not allowed to be here," she snapped. "I'm with OSHA today," I said, holding up the visitor pass Kenneth had printed. "You're kidding me. He's disgruntled. Fired for misconduct." Kenneth didn't flinch. "Already heard that angle. Now let's talk about the dozen deleted reports, the modified shut-off switches, and the press footage you tried to erase." Linda's face dropped. "This is slander," Paul barked. "We need to call legal." "You'll need more than legal," Kenneth interrupted. "You'll need answers for federal investigators." Word spread fast. By 9 a.m., the entire staff was whispering. Production had stopped. People stared through windows, phones buzzing. Workers started asking questions. Maria, the new hire, caught my eye. She mouthed, "What's happening?" I just nodded toward the conference room. Justice was happening. Kenneth gathered management in the main conference room. Me, Paul, Linda, Raj, and 2 HR reps sat at the long table. Kenneth plugged the flash drive into the projector. The first thing on screen, an email exchange where Paul tells supervisors to lose the files before OSHA's previous inspection. Next, timestamp showing reports submitted by me marked deleted within hours. Then, the video of the hydraulic press almost crushing a worker's arm. Linda stood up. "This is out of context." Kenneth raised a hand. "Sit down." The final slide was a voice memo. Paul's voice telling Raj, "Look, if OSHA gets involved, we'll just blame the floor guys. Say it was user error. That's what they always do. HR will back us." The room went silent. Dead. Cold. Silent. Even Raj, who always smirked, looked like he'd swallowed glass. Kenneth stood. "This is not a civil infraction anymore," he said. "This is a coordinated cover-up involving federal safety violations, deleted evidence, and whistleblower retaliation." He turned to me. "Mr. Nolan, you'll be contacted by both OSHA's federal team and legal counsel. You're entitled to whistleblower protections under Section 11C. Paul's voice cracked. "He's doing this for revenge." I finally spoke. "No. I'm doing this because someone almost died. Because you fired me for telling the truth. Because workers deserve better." Linda burst out. "You can't prove any of this will hold in court." Kenneth just looked at her, calm as ever. "Then we'll see you in court." By noon, OSHA shut down 3 lines. An official investigation was launched. Paul and Linda were escorted out of the building. Later that week, news crews showed up. Local headlines read, "Whistleblower blows lid off industrial cover-up." OSHA confirmed over 32 violations, ranging from serious to willful. Fines in the hundreds of thousands. And a pending criminal inquiry into falsified safety logs. People called me a hero. But I wasn't looking for applause. I just wanted them to stop lying. to stop risking lives, to stop treating safety like a speed bump on the way to profit. They fired me to shut me up, but all they did was give me the time to speak louder. 3 months passed. The plant remained under investigation. OSHA didn't just fine them, they rewrote every policy from top to bottom. Paul and Linda faced criminal charges. The headlines didn't let up. Public backlash was brutal. And me? I was somewhere quieter. Somewhere with clean air and no echo of machinery pounding steel all day. I'd moved to a smaller city up north. Took a job as a safety consultant for a firm that actually listened when I talked. Funny how strange it felt being heard. Having your words carry weight without being met with rolled eyes or veiled threats. I'd wake up early, drink coffee on my porch, and not feel dread in my chest. That alone was worth more than a paycheck. But it wasn't all peace. The scars were still there, not physical, but deep. What they'd done to me wasn't just about losing a job. They tried to erase my truth, gaslight me into silence, make me believe I was the problem. That takes a toll. But healing doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it just sneaks in. Like the moment you laugh again without guilt. Or the first time you sleep through the night without replaying every conversation, every betrayal. I got a call one afternoon from Maria, the young woman from the plant. She'd left too. Started a new job, safer, better. She thanked me. Said, "You saved lives, you know." I didn't know what to say. I didn't feel like a hero. I just told the truth. But maybe that's what being brave is sometimes. Doing the right thing when it's easier to walk away. People ask me if I'd do it all again. Would I still report them, knowing I'd be fired? Dragged through mud? Left without a plan? Yeah, I would. Because what they counted on was that no one would speak up. That fear would win. But here's what I learned. Silence protects power. But truth? Truth destroys it. Even if you're alone at first. Even if your voice shakes. Even if the cost feels unbearable. If you speak long enough. If you stand long enough. Someone will hear you. And sometimes, that's all it takes to bring down an empire built on lies. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And justice, when it finally lands, doesn't come screaming. It comes quietly, calmly, like a man with a clipboard and a badge who knows exactly what he's looking for. And it comes for everyone who thought they were untouchable. Final words. The lesson left behind. I lost a job. But I gained something more valuable. My dignity. My peace. And the knowledge that I didn't back down when it mattered most. If you're reading this and you're facing something similar, know this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. And your voice matters. Sometimes the hardest thing in the world is standing up when everyone wants you to stay down. But stand anyway. Because even when it feels like no one is watching, someone always is. And truth? It never stays buried for long.